Hello everybody, and this is Chaos with Chaos Esports Productions, bringing you a cast given by one of the viewers. So I received an email, I don't know, about 2 days ago, asking to do a replay of a Protoss player. And, you know, I love getting replays and kind of getting an opportunity to see how other people play. So today we're going to be going over. I'm assuming it's pronounced AricTaylor. So thank you for the replay, and we'll go ahead and get things started. For the first part of this, I'm going to kind of keep it on the ×2 faster, just so we can get through kind of the initial build opening. Because when I originally went through this, I noticed a couple things that are a little bit off. So first of all, right out of the gate, you do a 9 pylon, which is good, but you come into the game seeing that it's a Protoss versus Terran, and I think this pylon placement is a little unnecessary. I would just highly recommend against Terran and Protoss alike. I would highly recommend putting the pylon maybe over here or over here, just because basically, with it all the way out here, as you continue on with the game, you know, you'll get up enough gas to do either a 12 or a 13 gateway, which I can't remember which one you do. And see, you have to pull off really early, and actually that's actually a little bit of an early gateway. Just from a build order perspective, going 12 or 13 is a little bit easier to be more fluid on continually pumping out probes while obviously teching up, you know, getting your gateway down and then leading into your assimilator and your second pylon. So nothing too big, you know. Silver League, these type of mistakes aren't that big of a deal, but they can, as you get further up in the leagues, get a little bit more difficult to deal with, because more refined build orders obviously means you're gonna have faster armies and things of that nature. Now, one thing I do note, at this point, you know, your gateway is done, you've got your second pylon, and you've got a floating 160 minerals. You only have one probe queued up, which is good, but ideally, you at this point, your first gas should already be up, because basically, generally speaking, most build orders, you have a 12 or 13 gate, followed by a 14 or 15 Vespene geyser, and then a 15 or 16 pylon. It's just, it's a very standard opening build. And as you get more refined in getting the timings down of, like, instantly, once something's done, build the next thing, your play just gets a lot better. So yeah, so we'll keep on going. So I would highly recommend getting up. I mean, you get the gas up eventually, but at this point, your cybernetics core is delayed. I would probably put it down here as opposed to over. It's not that terrible placement. I guess it really doesn't matter at this league. But this is kind of late. A really aggressive player tends to have warp gate finished by around, at the earliest, 5:30 to 6-minute mark. And obviously you come over here and you kind of scout and see that, oh, your opponent's expanding. So you put down a second gateway, which is okay because you have enough minerals to get your expansion up yourself. I would kind of be curious to know what you were thinking at this point in time, because you're only building zealots. Obviously, since you got the late gas, you don't have the gas income to. I mean, you just now have the, you know, enough for your first stalker. But I would highly recommend definitely getting this gas a lot earlier, because from a timing perspective, if you build this at 14 or 15 and get 3 probes into it immediately, once your cybernetics core finishes, That's assuming that you've placed it down right after your gateway is finished. You should have approximately 100 minerals, which means you can get your cybernetics, your warp gate, and then also your very first stalker, and that way you're not super zealot heavy. But if you were planning on going this more zealot heavy to begin with, then I will continue on. Anyways, so you get your expansion down, you pull some probes, and everything's looking good so far. We really don't have any indication of what's going on. Unfortunately, your probe was killed just before he was able to poke up the ramp and kind of see what's here. So that's a little bit, worrisome. And you choose to move out here. Now, in your league, this actually can sometimes be extremely deadly because sometimes players, they don't necessarily play greedy, they just forget to make units. So obviously if that's the case, you can punish it. These gases, as of right now, you haven't picked your tech path. Ideally, you would probably have placed down a robotics facility or something. But I don't know, it just depends on what you suggest, and then obviously you need to fix your rally point. So one thing, let me go back. One thing with that, an easy way to avoid this mistake, immediately once you build your nexus, you click it and immediately set your rally for it. That way, it's already set up once once everything's ready and raring to go. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and continue on. So you kind of catch him off guard, which is awesome, because obviously now he's like OMG. And then you see a whole bunch of Marines come out, and I think if I remember right, I was really surprised that of how many of these you actually were able to take out without. I mean, you lost all your zealots, but I mean, I don't know. So let's take a look at what you're looking at. You're currently looking at your probes and seeing that, oh, I've got lots of probes, but you're not paying attention at all to your army, which in the lower leagues is probably better that you're focusing on your macro as opposed to your micro of your army. But at this point, honestly, yeah, walking home is definitely a good idea, because obviously 5 or 6 Marines. Yeah, I'm not sure if that beats 2 stalkers, but it's close, so might as well save them. So yeah, so let's see. At this point, now we're at the 9-minute and 22-second mark. Oof, nothing specific about that timing whatsoever, but you haven't teched it all. You haven't gotten down a forge. You haven't started looking at the Robo or Stargate or what is it? The Twilight Council. So I'd highly recommend trying to incorporate a little bit. I mean, obviously you're floating a fair number of minerals and gas. So picking a tech path earlier than this point is probably a good idea, whether you want to incorporate like a blink play or something to that effect. Heart of the Swarm in particular, out of all of the games that I've played and players that I've seen, a lot of players are favoring the Stargate nowadays, but just depending on where your APM is and how attentive you are to microing some units while macroing behind it, you might want to steer away from that and kind of go more for a robo play or something to that effect. So we'll go ahead and continue on. Queuing up this many probes at the same time is probably not the best, but I mean, in the lower leagues it's not going to really be that big of a deal. Also, I would highly recommend, as you put Nexus, as you continue to expand, add them to your hotkey. That way, you can basically just hit your hotkey, make a couple probes whenever you think about it. So yeah. As of right now, you still haven't seen anything, and this is another reason why you want to tech a lot earlier than you did. Because I mean, at this point, you have no idea what he's doing. He could. I mean, you haven't scouted a third potentially because I mean you're 10 minutes in. Anything is viable at this point. You kind of denied his expansion to some degree, but I'm pretty sure you didn't kill it because he lifted it off and moved along. And then coming in here and seeing this big bioforce, choosing to engage with this now. Let's see. Yeah, you're looking at your army. So choosing to engage with this is, I mean, you see it. It's physically bigger than yours, and choosing to actually physically engage with that is probably not your best option. So something you want to work on is seeing what you're up against and knowing whether or not, having a general idea of whether or not you're going to lose. Like the one-on-one engagement, assuming nobody micros. So you chose to go Stargate play, which is not the end of the world. Because at this point, you know that he's going big Marine Marauder Ball. And while the new Stargate units are good, like the Void Ray's Prismatic Charge attack and the Oracle's Pulsar Beam, while they're very good, I mean, the Oracle in general is more of a harassment type unit, so I mean, I guess that's kind of what you're going for. Plus, this also gives you an opportunity to kind of get in and see what's going on. So it's not the end of the world, but I probably would have, in my shoes, I probably would have gone Robo as opposed to going Stargate. But really, not the end of the world. So your Oracle comes in and sits here for a little while. Now I'm assuming that you're just kind of trying to figure out what you're doing with. Okay, and then you finally get back to it. So, okay, so you come in here, you take out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's not too bad. Now at this point, honestly, I would I would deactivate the Pulsar Beam, and honestly, I would probably plant that guy right here. Because, just for a nice thing to know, Oracles, 1v1 against 6 Marines wins. So, obviously, if he's got more than 6 Marines here, you want to get out of there as quick as possible. So, and then I guess you just kind of click this over here and just, it died. So at this point, you saw that he was moving out, and you don't really know what he's doing. I don't think you saw any medevacs with that. So I guess I can understand why you're positioning yourself here. One thing I would highly recommend to do, as opposed to clumping up into a ball like this, I would take these front stalkers and I would move them to this location. That way you're more spread out and have greater surface area. And basically, the way that most battles go, the person that has the greater surface area against your opponent wins. So always good to keep your unit spread out as opposed to clumped into a single ball. So anyways, so we continue on and you just kind of wait, and then you're like, oh, where is he? So as opposed to just walking up here and finding this clump of units and then getting dropped in your back, I would recommend sending out 4 stalkers. I mean, you've got plenty here, 4 or even 2, to the Xel'Naga Tower. That gives you full. I mean, let's back up. So, had you done that, let's go to everybody. Had you put your 4 or 2 stalkers here, let's see. You may or may not. let's see. You probably would have seen this coming for sure as it had moved down, but it would have given you an easier time to react with this, because now obviously you come back and you lose a couple gateways. I'm really not sure why he chose to pick up, because honestly I think he could have done a lot more damage to your army and pretty much gave you free units. So lucky for you. And it looks like he's trying to go in for another drop at your natural. Now, okay, oh, so he did take out your cybernetics core, which is actually a really big deal, because, I mean, that limits, limits you to zealots as far as warp-ins goes. So then, at this point, you're choosing to move across. Now, I want to also make note of one thing. You've got this forge, I believe, back at the 10-minute mark. And you have a lot of minerals and gas. When you plant down a building, make sure that you first remember that you plant down the building, because I know I have trouble sometimes remembering which tech structures I already have and which ones I don't. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go to a probe and say, oh, I have a cannon, which means I have a forge, so I can build upgrades. Awesome. So yeah, definitely think, like, StarCraft in general, you have to think of a lot of different things, and upgrades is definitely on a higher priority than a lot of things. But obviously, if you don't have an army, you're gonna die. So just something to think about going forward. Anyways, so moving forward, come in here now. As you can see with this engagement, he has, even though he's on the lower ground, since he has the vision, vision of your army. Vision. Oh, I guess. Yeah. I mean, he has clear vision of what's going on up here. He's gonna do more effective damage than you are. Some of your stalkers in the background are either gonna poke at these guys or and not really do anything in this fight. So that's kind of why this engagement went a little worse than expected. But still, you have enough stuff to get through. And then obviously with your Void Ray harass, you manage to kind of force him to come back to his base. One thing to note, your Void Ray has that prismatic alignment ability, and that does significant amount of damage to armored units, I believe. And in general, it just makes your Void Ray a heck of a lot more effective. So definitely, before you do an engagement, I would highly recommend just clicking. I think it's an E is the hotkey for it. Let's see. I can't see right now. Anyways, so continue on. So you come in here and you effectively take out his army because he doesn't have enough medevacs, and you walk straight into his base, and he calls GG. So overall, I think you did a pretty good job of keeping your unit production up, which I know a lot of Bronze, Silver, and Gold League people tend to struggle with. But in general, one thing I would highly recommend you do is go look at some just generic build orders and kind of get a routine of getting your openings squared away, because a lot of times your openings can dictate how well the game plays out. Obviously, since you're in the lower leagues, making these kind of mistakes isn't that big of a deal, but it's just something that you should consider looking forward. Also, you never really scouted his third base. Obviously, I like to check around the 12 to 14 minute mark. It's kind of a big range because depending on what's going on, depends on kind of how that timing works. But I would highly recommend just send a zealot, send a stalker, send something, it doesn't really cost much if he doesn't really have any defense, because you can just say, hey, I see it, and you can kind of pressure that and force an engagement down here, as opposed to having to walk into a usually well defended area. So those are kind of my thoughts. Let me know what you think. I think overall for your league, you kind of have some of the fundamentals down. Your probe production was actually pretty good, which I know mine was terrible for the first, I don't know, 6 months that I played this game. I remember being at like the 14-minute mark with like 30 probes, and I lost like every single game. So kudos to you. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you have other opinions on you know, things that I might have said, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section, or send me an email or whatever. I'd be more than happy to, you know, kind of rehash some of the things that I had said. Also, if you're a viewer and would like me to do a little bit of analysis on your game and kind of where you're at and what I think needs work, feel free. I'm going to put an email address in the little description bar, so feel free to send replays to that. And I try to do several videos a week, so I hope I can see your replay and hope to give you some good feedback. I'll see y'all later.